Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kari, for giving me this golden opportunity to come here and read my non-fiction literature. I'll try to read as slow as I can so my accent won't get, doesn't get in the way. The title, Thached House. On the 25th of April 2015, an earthquake measuring 7.8 magnitude in Nepal killed approximately 9,000 people and injured some 22,000. 2 years later, it rained for a week or two, triggering enormous floods. The Nepal Red Cross initial rapid assessment reported that a total of 1.7 million people were affected. Newspapers made it banner news. Different print and online media covered stories with photographs and video clips that showed children and logs being swept away by the flood, and a cordon of armies rummaging to rescue the victims. People published poetry, read about it on the street and in cafes, posted about it on social media. They crafted stories, published and told. The flood deluged homes and animals, and engulfed a child that escaped the mother's hand and moved away floating like a log until it hit the horizon. The flood cascaded downward, mangling dams. That year, a photojournalist was rewarded for the best picture, a picture of a child floating and a bewailing mother on the side. It made my memories, buried for many years about the flood, surface. I googled to explore the loss and damage the flood had caused, but to no avail, and I had to rely on information my father shared. It was the early 80s. I was 4 then. Heavy monsoon rain for a week had risen up and outstretched the water level in the Bakra rivulet, very high and wide. The rivulet was a mile away towards the west from my parents' house in Chargare in the village of Madhumala of the Moran district. The house had survived many seasons. My mother had gone through her labor pain in that house when I was in her belly. My father, along with his brothers, had toiled for a month to build the house. The house stored beehives and bees. I used to run eating and sucking honeycombs with both of my hands, honey dripping off of my elbows and my mouth painted with sticky layers of honey, which when dry coated my face with a filmy layer of translucent sweetness. The house had a sublet of a small barn for cattle and a storeroom for harvested crops to save them until next winter. It was a thatched house, but much better, stronger, and spacious than the house we would have to eventually build. The Bakra River swelled up due to heavy rain and started eroding the land miraculously by expanding its breadth horizontally, covering the vast swath of land and stealthily approached our house until it was a few meters away. And that had just happened in one night. Viewing the flood from the top of the house, one could see nothing but water and water everywhere that had completely covered all the land far and beyond, that my father said made him feel as if he was on top of a minuscule island without any people or boats or ships around. He saw logs, debris, and dead animals floating around. Since then, the Bakra River became the Bakra River. Social media as we know it today did not exist, nor had we in the countryside any print or electronic media to learn of death tolls and displaced families. People had started leaving the place. Some grabbed their belongings and rode flatboats made of banana stems or bamboo sticks, crossing the vast swollen swath of water towards the east, in the opposite direction of the river. I remember the swollen red tear-filled eyes of people escaping. They looked in pain. Those who had nowhere to go seemed worried about what might happen if it continued raining. But we waited, expecting it to stop raining and the water level would decrease, my father said. We believed in love. We had nowhere to go. Thankfully, it stopped raining. It had taken another week for the water level to subside, and it looked even more horrible, my father said. The undulating floods and landslides have swept away our 10 acres of land, leaving just the house with dead bodies of animals and debris around. It had taken all the land, along with our crops of maize and rice, our only source of food and income. Our extended family lived in the house. My father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, my father's brother and his wife and 2 children, and my father's 2 youngest brothers and myself. I vaguely remember those nights when it rained. All our family members gathered in unison in a single room and started praying to God Indra, the god of rain in Hinduism. They placed their hands together in a namaste posture and wished that nothing would happen to themselves and their children. They all chanted the same mantra in whispering, trembling voices with fear in their faces. Rahi, Rahi, Rahi Indra. They were asking Indra to stop the rain. I believe now that the unity of all the family members chanting the mantra in unison helped the rain to stop and the Bakra River from sweeping us away and our house and animals in the barn. We were very lucky. My father said we were spared. There was nothing left but a thatched house for the joint family to eke out a living. So my parents had to make a decision. Leaving other family members to fend for themselves, my parents decided to migrate to Gaurada, the Jhapa district, which was 30 miles further south, where my grandparents from my mother's side lived in search of food, clothes, and housing. It was not going to be an easy journey because my 5-month-old sister was growing like a tendril in my mother's distended belly, which looked bigger than a watermelon. There was no bus route and one had to walk through woods like jungle that was scarcely trodden and infested with a fear of wild creatures, mostly snakes and unnamed others. At that time, there were no vehicles on the route besides on the east-west highway that passed by a little town named Urlabari, which was 4 miles away from where our land was swept away. The forest extended across the district where one could still fear catching encephalitis, a great epidemic, although it had been eradicated in the 1950s. People used to walk along rarely trodden paths across the jungle in groups due to the fear of thieves who could steal your jewelry or ornaments at night point. Every 6 to 7 miles, in a small clearing, you would see a small footpath market containing scanty grocery stores and a few small tea shops surrounded by a residential area that looked like a hamlet. We left our family and waterlogged house early in the morning in a month of summer. My father had a big backpack that contained our clothes. The water level in the small river had subsided. The Bakra River had shrunken, but the space it occupied had stretched out until it hit the horizon. There was still a lot of water filled to excess on the palm. The bloated dead animals, the debris, logs, scattered haystacks littered people's palms. The dead animals lying in the scorching heat started stinging. The palm that was filled with golden color rice paddies and corn almost ready to be harvested was now filled with sand and random objects dumped by the flood. My father continued supporting my mother, wasting her up and down the many sloping terraces on the journey and making sure she would not get stuck in swamps or water-filled invisible ditches. I had sat on my father's shoulder with my 2 legs dangling from either side of his sideburns in such a way that it looked as if my father was wearing a garland of legs. When my father tickled my soul, I cackled and threw my feet up, grabbing my father's hair on his temple. I was happy on my father's shoulders. My father wore baggy pants with their bottoms folded up to the knees, and my mother wore a kurta that came down past her knees with harem pants underneath. The splashing of water as they walked made their clothes wet. I could see some people moving with their belongings on their backs. I do not remember the conversation my father had with those people, but I could discover the weary looks they exchanged that showed that they were in similar pain of being swept away by the flood. In 2 hours, it might have been longer. We passed the flood-covered swathland and arrived in Urlabari, but we had to continue moving further south. By the time we arrived at Urlabari, it was still early morning and we had passed the mostly flood-affected area, but the journey had just begun. There was a vast area of forest ahead of us to cross. I was not worried about the journey, but excited. I had felt very safe and secure being with my parents, who seemed my home, my world, my protectors, providers, and creators. They were my universe. It was a world filled with happiness for me, frolicking on my father's shoulders all the time. I never had a feeling that we lost anything as long as my parents were on either side. The journey was fun. It was an exploration to me. On the journey, twigs of the trees teased me as the wind blew. Leaves fell off the trees on me and my father's shoulder and onto the ground. The roads ahead was like a trail strewn with leaves slightly narrow and meandering, but it was level. I saw jackals in the distance peeping at us through the trees and asked my parents, pointing to take a look at them. I heard hissing sounds and wondered what it might be. In places the jungle was not very dense, so the sunbeams streamed their rays in glittering strands through trees. I could hear animals' voices in the far distance and birds chirping, crows crying. In our culture, even today, when a crow calls, people wonder what message the bird might have brought, especially if it was a bad message. Especially if it was a bad message. Tell me, it is a bad or good? My mother sighed as if she was talking to the crow and asking it a question. We saw hardly any other people crossing or passing the trail-like path, but my parents continued walking with me on my father's shoulders. On the journey, I played with my father's mustache, a symbol of men's machismo that people used to say. They believed that the mustache would not be shaved until his parents died. I laughed at his mustache because I did not have one. He thought my smile was an antibiotic. So every time when he seemed drained of all his energy, he tickled my feet. The action repeated, my hands grabbing his hair and me quaffing and flinging my feet up in the air. My mother shuffled like a snail holding my father's hand. My parents talked to me more than they talked to each other. Since it was a summer month and we were heading for the south, the sun was right above our heads sizzling. My father was already drenched with sweat. Perhaps I might have peed over him too, but he could not hardly distinguish the smell of my feet from his sweat. We continued walking. My mother started panting. Let me die here, I cannot walk anymore. My mother sighed, wiping the sweat from her forehead. Let's have a rest for a while. My father suggested, you look thirsty, drink some water. All of a sudden, my mother collapsed to her knees. Her belly kicked the garments she had on, but as my sister in her belly danced to the rhythm of my tickled feet, my father propped her up with her one hand, the other holding me. My father rested me down in no time and handed her the bottle of water he was carrying. Drink, be encouraged. Thank you.